Well, he's left a giant-sized hole in our lives. Unfortunately, the pandemic it's hard to spend as much time with the Queen.
Losing Princess Diana at the peak of her powers was a massive blow to the British royal family. Although she tried to retain some connections in the family even after her divorce and before her eventual demise, not every woman was her ally. One name sticks out like a sore thumb: Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Their relationship was meh at best, with hidden truths at its shaky core. Why was Diana reluctant to keep Sophie as a friend? What exactly does Sophie know about the princess? Join us as we discuss Sophie's revelation of the late Diana's secrets. A tale of two royal women. In the realm of monarchy, whether British or anywhere else around the world, hierarchy is an unshakable staple that has come to stay and isn't going anywhere. Such is the case of Princess Diana, often dubbed the People's Princess, and Sophie Rhys-Jones. While one was born into aristocracy and nobility, the other was born into a middle-class family, where she learned to work her way up the ladder and, through education and consistent hard work, with a daily reminder that no one is coming to save her from the rigorous demands of the world from a middle-class child. Princess Diana was born Diana Frances Spencer to John Spencer, the 8th Earl Spencer, living the life of an aristocrat since she was born. Her family lineage traces back as far as former monarchs and prime ministers, like Winston Churchill, making her not just a regular aristocrat, but a top-of-the-pile figure in the aristocracy. She grew up in Park House, on the Sandringham estate, which was rented from the British royal family and a mere stone's throw from where the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, used to spend her Christmases with her family. Diana was already Lady Diana before Princess Diana, revealing that she didn't learn the codes and constructs of aristocracy, nobility, or royalty from the pages of a book. She actually lived it. However, Sophia was different. Born January 20th, 1965, to a sales director who imported industrial tires and rubber goods, Christopher Bournes Rhys-Jones, and her mother, Mary Rhys-Jones, who worked in a charity and as a secretary. Sophia Helen Rhys-Jones was born into a family in Kent that worked its way to the top right from scratch. She is the perfect epitome of hard work towards success. Of course, a child born with fewer opportunities than an aristocrat's kid was immediately incentivized to focus on education, attending West Kent College to train as a secretary, which was the common craft among smart women in public relations. She represented firms across the United Kingdom before opening her own agency in 1996, working her way to the top of the pile with no generational wealth as a backup, meaning that she had to learn the cutthroat way of the world very fast, as the private sector required being in a pool with sharks, a real dogfight where you either learn to swim or sink. Sophie swam elegantly. However, as the years rolled on, both women found themselves in the walls of the British royal family, with Princess Diana getting married to Prince Charles on July 29, 1981, and Sophie getting married to Prince Edward in June 1999. With the massive gulf in class and aristocratic nuances, how did these two get on with each other? The Royal Cold War. Although Duchess Sophie is a descendant of King Henry IV of England and is related to the family of the Viscounts Molesworth through her grandmother, Margaret Patricia Rhys-Jones, who was the great-granddaughter of the Reverend John Molesworth, himself the father of Sir Guilford Molesworth, and a great-grandson of Robert Molesworth. Her middle-class persona was more significant and often used against her in the media. Sophie and Prince Edward started dating in 1993, and he was more than happy to introduce her to every member of the royal family, even Diana, who had just recently dissolved her union with Prince Charles at the time. In her youth, Sophia was a tremendously beautiful woman with such eloquence and a smile that lit up every room that she stepped into, while the media watched her move silently within the walls of Buckingham Palace. Without raising hell, they cooked up a different narrative accrued from unsourced conjectures tagged as royal insider. Rumor had it that Princess Diana and Sophie never got on as well as people thought they did. While some posited that the gulf in class and Diana's recent divorce status played a key part in their strained relationship, others raised jealousy on the part of Diana as the bone of contention. The rationale was simple, yet damaging. It isn't news that Princess Diana's most celebrated trait came from her ability to connect with the people, unifying the royal family and the people of the United Kingdom without creating too much fuss. She had the ability to delve away from many years of the opaque tradition, where the masses rarely connected with royalty, bridging that gap with her new age style of leadership, modernizing the royal family's relationship with the masses completely. Her ability to bridge the gap, paired with her charity works in the United Kingdom and beyond, gave her the tag of the People's Princess. However, after her divorce from Prince Charles on August 28, 1996, it didn't take long before the narrative changed. Diana, who had always been seen as a fashion icon in the royal family, brought her modern fashion ideas into the mix with the traditional royal family ideas, but leaving the family as a future wife to the heir apparent at the time signaled a need for a replacement. And that's where Sophie came in. Sophie was just as elegant and beautiful as Diana. In fact, there is an urban legend of their iconic resemblance, even in the papers, where most people couldn't tell their difference. Quickly, she replaced Diana as the new social media royal family muse, leaving Diana in a limbo. According to some royal insiders, this development particularly created a silent beef between the two women, but it was a short one that never made its way into the papers. Sophie's image was rising in the family even before she got married. But why did Diana keep a tightly knit circle, keeping Sophie out of it? Diana's closely knit circle. The relationship between Diana and the British royal family had soured beyond recognition. Hence, it was difficult to repair. She had accused them of hate, emotional neglect, and a plan to have her killed. Hence, it was no surprise that she wanted to keep only her trusted friends as close as possible. By the mid-90s, Diana had made up her mind to seek out love interests in different places rather than the stifling manners at Buckingham Palace, causing some serious harm to the reputation of the royal family. Having lived in and around Buckingham Palace, watching the politics unfold, with whispered alliances and veiled betrayals at its very core, she had learned the hard way, keeping her circle as tightly knit as possible. This fiercely built circle rarely welcomed outsiders or newcomers. It was a relationship of trust built over time. Owing to her traumatic experiences of betrayal and false narratives deployed strategically to ruin her image by frenemies, she was cautious. While this circle involved the likes of Elton John, Liza Minnelli, George Michael, Michael Jackson, and Gianni Versace, whose funeral she attended in 1997, there was one very notable absence. Yeah, you guessed it, Sophie. Sophie's rise was nothing short of meteoric. It seemed perfectly curated and well-established. It had everything that the Diana name was once associated with while she was married to Charles. Sophie's name now carried beauty and power amongst citizens, and she was simply the perfect epitome of everything that Diana had come to distrust. Sophie was seen as part of an institution that Diana feared and hated. While Diana was born into the aristocracy and had the courtly games entrenched in her DNA from childhood, Sophie was a different breed. She was the type who had worked her way to the top, meeting and crushing all types of opposition on her way there, with her eyes on the ball and nowhere else. However, rumor has it that Diana's real fear of associating with Sophie or letting her anywhere near her inner circle was Sophie's operant conditioning, which screamed institutionally loyal, meaning that once she found her way into a setup that she found commanding, she was willing to stay loyal to it without changing her stance. Unlike Diana, who raised hell when she felt the slightest form of displeasure from this royal institution, she just couldn't trust Sophie to do the same. Also, Sophie had experience in public relations, meaning that she is a media-savvy, polished, and smooth operator behind the scenes. She could play chess with the media and end it with a checkmate. But Diana wasn't looking for a smooth operator. She wanted people who would go to war for and with her. And she just couldn't trust that to be Sophie. It was almost as if she knew a secret about her that no one else did. While Sophie was being touted as Diana's replacement, how did she react to this media ploy? Sophie played the game. Sophie did not come into the royal family as just a pretty face with a good heart and a smile for the ages. She knew she was walking into it. Immediately, she said yes to Prince Edward's proposal. Her introduction into the royal family didn't create much buzz. Prince Edward was the last brother of Prince Charles, the heir apparent. Hence, no one really paid that much attention to his personal relationship, as it had little influence in the grand scheme of things as long as the crown was concerned. However, like in every good life story, settings and timing are key factors. Princess Diana's reputation was already crumbling like a house of cards, with slanders of rejections, failed relationships, and infidelity at the very core of the failing reputation. It was at this time that Sophie was getting introduced to the royal family. Another beautiful woman with a keen sense of modern fashion, or what passed as such at the time, and a good head on her shoulders. It was the perfect scenic distraction to rob Princess Diana of the rest of her spotlight in the media. While rumors emerged from royal insiders about the people in charge of the media's portrayal of Diana's reputation, the most frequently quoted one has Queen Elizabeth in the mix. Rumor has it that she wanted a show of shame in Princess Diana's name, as penance for deliberately dragging the royal family's name through the mud as a result of her well-documented flirtations with other men before the divorce was finalized in 1996. Although these allegations are gathered from conjectures with no one from Buckingham Palace backing up these claims, it has become a staple of popular culture, often discussed in pubs during lazy hours. However, Sophie saw right through the media charade. It wasn't that much of a surprise for most people who knew of her growth in public relations. It was a simple setup. Princess Diana had just lost her life to a terrible accident in 1997, and the media was trying to replace her with another young, beautiful woman who was just as fashion-savvy and was getting married into the royal family in 1999. She was too smart to throw her toys out of the pram because she was being thrown in the middle of a thinly veiled squabble that she wasn't ready to be a part of, so she played the game. The Guardian had been releasing articles creating comparisons between Sophie and Diana, drawing a parallel line between their beauty, fashion sense, and just how photogenic they both are. But in June 14, 1999, just 5 days before her wedding to Prince Edward, they released a new article where she distanced herself completely from comparisons to Diana, claiming that they were two very different people. She was incredibly beautiful, but we're two very different people. She had her own personality and I had mine, Sophie said, killing the rumors and the patronizing whims of the media before her wedding. And for the first time, the media felt that they had met their match. Finally, a royal that will be tough game to catch in a well-spun web of conspiracies. However, after her marriage to Prince Edward, Sophie had lived a rather quiet life, keeping her duty going as a working royal and Duchess of Edinburgh. But shadows of her rumored short-lived rift with Princess Diana continue to show up at odd hours, and this time she has decided to spill the bainas. What exactly was this compelling secret that she knew about Diana? Sophie finally breaks her silence. The late Princess Diana has always been rumored to have a way with people, whether noble or common. It's also a part of the reason for the People's Princess tag. The media always had one good thing or two to say about Diana, and no one ever questioned it. However, recent reports after her demise have shown her in a different light, with suggestive comments that have exposed her as somewhat cruel and a bit of a bully. While Diana's relationship with Sophia was not particularly published, rumors had it that they weren't the closest peas in a pod. In fact, they couldn't stand each other. More specifically, Diana wasn't a huge fan of Sophia for reasons best known to her. Diana started her relationship with Charles as a kid, as she was only 17 years old at the time. However, it was different for Sophia. She was a 34-year-old woman when she got married into the royal family. She was the polar opposite of Diana, a mature and middle-class woman. However, they looked alike. While everyone knew Diana as the rebel princess, who would never be ridden under anyone's command, especially when she didn't agree with them. Sophia was seen differently. She played her role quietly without any sort of provocative fuss. This level-headed display of calmness and maturity was not Diana's cup of tea, so she often referred to Sophia with some disparaging comments like "Little Miss Goody Two-Shoes." Sophia revealed in a private interview that these comments hurt her inside and made her cry sometimes, as someone of Diana's standing just couldn't stand her because they had completely opposite personalities, even though they looked alike. However, Diana's real ire came from the royal family's acceptance of Sophie, whom she claimed had an easy ride into the royal family, unlike her, who was thrown to the wolves from the very start of her relationship, which culminated in her losing her marriage. According to royal sources who were especially close to Diana, she hated Sophie because she believed that Sophie copied her looks. They shared a fashion taste, but for Diana, it was deeper than that. She was threatened by Sophie's presence and the media's sudden acceptance of her. "Oh look, here comes my double," regularly claiming that Sophie ought to get her own look. Sophie once revealed to a trusted source that she once left a royal family dinner in tears, as Diana called her to the side and bore her disdain to her in very clear terms. It would seem no one really knew Diana and who she was behind the curtains. However, Sophie remained unbroken. She bided her time and kept it moving. How well did he take these criticisms and use them to fuel her ambition and duty as a working royal? Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Life as a working royal. The transition from a middle-class citizen to the highest echelon of society's elite class was never going to be an easy ride, and Sophie knew it too. However, a child raised by a salesman and a secretary understands the importance of sacrifice, and sometimes trading important habits to take the next step. She is made of tough, so she didn't let up. Even in spite of Diana's constant bullying, she rose to the occasion with her husband supporting her every move, making the weight of the responsibility that comes with the office easier to bear. Her commitment spans quite a few sectors, including education, healthcare, gender equality, and support for people with disabilities. As Duchess of Edinburgh and Countess of Wessex, she was saddled with the duty of supporting the United Nations Women, Peace and Security agenda and the United Kingdom's Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict initiative. While it appears to be a sensitive initiative for most women, Sophie has taken it in her stride and she has met people with inspiring stories who were affected by the same problems. But how did she get into this program in the first place? Rolling back the hands of time to 2019, she attended a meeting in Buckingham Palace during a Women, Peace and Security agenda and Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict initiative reception. And since then, she couldn't take her eyes off the ball. As a staunch believer in gender equality and human rights, she felt drawn to the case, and right there and then, she formally expressed her interest in taking the initiative head-on and functioning as one of its leaders. She wanted to help give voice to women and girls who are being denied their fundamental rights as humans and are being subjected to harm and violence as a result of conflict, to promote those who seek to play a part in finding peace, and to support others as they attempt to rebuild their lives. Her decision to take on this initiative endeared her even further to the people of the United Kingdom, with some believing that she had finally done enough to replace the people's princes in their hearts. While she found joy in doing this job, she also explained that the world had seen her go to very dark places mentally, as some of the experiences were too traumatic to hear about. While Sophie's charity works mirrored the late People's Princess, just how different were they? Sophia's public image and lifestyle. While many acknowledged the parallel similarities between the two women, their public image and lifestyle were completely different. At the start of her relationship with Prince Edward, she faced serious scrutiny, as media outlets and publications referred to her as the girl next door, owing to her ordinary background in direct contrast to the family she was marrying into, the House Windsor. While Diana claimed that Sophie had an easy ride into royal life, the media sees it completely differently. Certainly, it took me a while to find my feet. The frustration was that I had to reduce my expectations of what I could actually do. I couldn't turn up at a charity and go, "Right, I think you should be doing this," because that's what I was used to doing in my working life, she said. She was used to being the boss and giving orders on how an event should be. However, coming into the royal family meant that she had to take a really big step back and go, okay, they want you to be the icing on the cake, the person to come in to thank their volunteers and funders, not necessarily to tell them how to run their communications plan. It was a completely different lifestyle from what she was used to. However, while she tried not to challenge the status quo and simply find ways to keep her head above water, she faced unprecedented challenges, but she rode them out. While her appearance drew comparisons with Diana's, their public image differed completely from each other's. Sophie is more the under-the-radar, stabilizing influence and a safe pair of hands type of person, as often called by the media. Amanda Pullinger, the founder and principal of Global Female Investors Management LLC, a global advisory firm focused on providing strategic and practical talent, career, and business solutions, stated to Town and Country magazine that Sophie presents herself as an ordinary person, and she feels that is increasingly what the royal family needs to do. She has also been noted for her long-term work on gritty subject matters, such as gender-based violence and conflict and trips to difficult areas, such as South Sudan and Sierra Leone. Perhaps her most popular trait is her insistence on driving herself to and from social events. While the media has consistently dropped think pieces on her inability to break out of her persona as middle class and unable to embrace her new status, she remains unchanged and unrepentantly hands-on. Why was Diana so mean to Sophie? Is there a chance that she was lashing out from jealousy of losing her marriage to Charles? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.